Radiolab, the beloved and award-winning radio show and podcast from Public Radio, WNYC, and the International Astronomical Union have launched a global naming contest for one of Earth's quasi-moons.
Wait a minute, Earth has a quasi-moon?
Hey.
You may have heard that Radiolab named the first ever quasi-moon in its viral Zuzve episode back in January, which followed host Latif Nasser as he tracked down a mysterious moon he noticed orbiting Venus, but on a poster in his son's bedroom. Nasser learned that the moon's name, Zuzve, was a misunderstanding by the poster's artist, but the Radiolab team was able to successfully petition for the quasi-moon to be officially named Zuzve. The episode brought the podcast and the International Astronomical Union, the IAU, together.
The IAU and Radiolab have teamed up once again to build a new global naming contest for one of Earth's quasi-moons. People worldwide will have the chance to leave their mark on our sky with official recognition from the world's only authority for assigning names to objects in our solar system and beyond.
You mean I can't get it through the International Star Registry?
No,
Dang
it's not the realist.
Yeah. Joining us to talk about this IAU and Radiolab contest is Latif Nasser from Radiolab, as well as Kelly Blumenthal from the International Astronomical Union's Office for Astronomy Outreach. Latif is in LA.
True.
Kelly is in Tokyo. And our resident astronomer, Mr. Universe himself, Hampshire College's Dr. Salman Hamid, who is also the CEO of Kainaat Studios, which aims to reach specifically South Asians with videos for kids and grown-ups about astronomy, is in Amherst right now. Mr. Universe, let's start with you, since we talk to you every week about astronomy. How did you team up with these awesome people from Radiolab and from the International Astronomical Union?
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for Kelly and Latif to be here. And we have worked a little bit with International Astronomical Union, Office for Astronomy Outreach. We do the outreach, and International Astronomical Union is the thing. It's the organization that does astronomy work. So we have worked with them before. We continue to work with them. And I think we had mentioned I was there in Cape Town for a fantastic General Assembly of International Astronomical Union just this past month. And so
no planets were harmed in this version of it.
I'm not going to comment here because,
Kelly rolls her eyes.
That's right. And although, Kelly, we should mention that in the Pioneer Valley, where New England Public Media is, Pluto remains a planet. This is our land, and we maintain Pluto as a planet. So, but getting to your point, yes. So Kelly contacted us that this contest was going, and Radiolab is organizing it. And since a lot of our videos that we create for Kainaat Studios are aimed at South Asian audience, but also for audience in the global South, and this is one of the things that I think is necessary as well. For naming heavenly bodies, I think a global world participation is good, useful, and necessary. So that's the reason we have also created a video, which will be released early next week, highlighting this particular contest.
Latif, if people did not follow this Radiolab story, first of all, Radiolab is such a spectacular show. So I'm totally nerding out that we get to have you on our show. Congratulations to you and the wonderful work that you do there. The creative way that you use sound and radio is an inspiration to me. But especially when this story came about, I was like, this is the most amazing story of bringing something so, I guess, parochial as your child's bedroom and a poster on the wall to literally our solar system.
And a typo at that.
Yeah. So can you sum up for those who haven't listened to this particular podcast why Zuzve is on this poster, why it was wrong, and why it is now correct?
Right.
Yeah, it was that people have told me this was the most arduous way to correct a typo that they've ever heard of. So basically what happened was, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor to be here, and with such esteemed company here. Basically what happened was, I noticed this typo on my kid's bedroom wall, and I was like, Zuzve, like, I don't know, that's so weird. I never heard that in school, and the idea that Venus having a moon, I was like, what is that? what is this dot on here, and who is trying to lie to my kid like that this thing exists, you know? And so it took me like a more reporting than I would care to admit to realize that this actually was a real thing. I called out my friend at NASA, and even she was totally flummoxed. Her name's Liz Landau, and then she was actually the one who texted me back and cracked it. So it's on the poster. It said ZOOZVE, but it was actually 2002 VE. 2002 VE68 is the full name of it. But the apparently, because I also got in touch with the illustrator who was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds like a mistake I would make," because he he saw the name 2002 VE68, which is just, I guess, the auto, the way they auto assign names to these new bodies that get discovered in space, like kind of like it almost feels like getting a license plate or a phone number or something. It's just like an auto generated thing based on when it's
It's
discovered.
oddly very close to my actual EV license
That's
plate.
right. That's right. And so, but he was looking at it and he was like, "Oh, this makes way more sense to be Zuzve." Like that was his logical leap that he went on, I guess. And so then he put it on this poster, and this poster had been in circulation for years, and I, and then and I noticed it, and I was like, "That's so weird." But then also, because when I Googled that name, no results came up in English. And how often does that happen? That never happens, right? And so then I fell in love with the name, weirdly. And then the more I found out about this actual object that was actually near Venus, that was kind of like a moon in some way, but kind of not like a moon in some way, I sort of fell in love with that too. And it just felt right for that name to go with that thing. And then I don't know, it sort of then we petitioned the IAU. Kelly is a member of them, and and it just felt like, oh, please, pretty please, just name it Zuzfe.
And Kelly, what happened?
Well, the working group for small body nomenclature were the people that you guys reached out to, Latif.
That's right.
And they were so taken by this story that they decided to acquiesce and actually name it Zuzbe.
Why was it, for those who don't keep track of this thing, named 2002 VE-68, Kelly, from the International Astronomical Union?
Well, you're very much, correct in thinking about it like assigning a license plate number or a telephone number. It's based on the date it was discovered. So I would assume that this was probably discovered in 2002, or at least identified in 2002, and then some alphanumeric combination after that. So it's pretty logical way of putting things together.
Yeah, and I thought at the beginning VE was because it was near Venus. That seemed very logical to me, but that was
Right.
not at all the reason why it's called VE. It's like it's all about when it was discovered and the order at which it was discovered. So V corresponds to a 2-week chunk of the year. And anyway, it's a little bit complicated, but it's all about the order. It's kind of like an auto-generated name.
But this
We're
is the
talking about.
I was just going to say.
We're talking about quasi. Hold on, let me just reset right here. We're talking about quasi-moons and the Quasi-Moon Zuzve that was named by the show Radiolab, with Radiolab host Latif Nasser, with International Astronomical Union's officer for astronomy outreach, Kelly Blumenthal, and our very own Mr. Universe, Hampshire College's Salman Hamid. Mr. Universe?
I was just going to say, this is precisely the reason why we need to give names, because that nomenclature is there. And as Latif said, well, it gets a little complicated about V and the license plate and so on and so forth. And so Zuzwe, hey, now everybody knows there are a lot of quasi-moons, but people know about Zuzwe's. And this is the reason why we should give names, and cool names.
It's cute.
Yeah, so that people don't accidentally misname moons and other heavenly bodies because of misprints on posters. This is the one time we get a pass.
That's right.
This question might be good for both Salman and Kelly, but let's start with Kelly. Tell us what a quasi-moon is and why this is such an interesting heavenly body.
So a quasi-moon is an asteroid that orbits the sun, but if you're looking at it from the perspective of somebody on Earth, it actually looks like it's orbiting the Earth just because of some funky way that it's moving around the sun and the relative orbits of the Earth and the asteroid.
So this Zuzve is if you're on Venus, it looks like it's orbiting Venus.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
we have our very own quasi-moon, and that brings us to the real reason why we're all talking right now, because Radiolab once again wants to name another moon. Quasi.
But this time with the help of the public.
Yeah.
It was
Tell us about
it was so
this
fun that I was like, everybody should get in on this.
I can imagine it was fun. And IAU already loves Radiolab. It's clear because they acquiesced, as Kelly said, to naming that quasi-moon.
Barely.
Yeah.
Barely.
So through the end of this month, right, is when people can participate in naming our quasi-moon, the quasi-moon of Earth. Kelly, tell us first about our own quasi-moon. Is there anything interesting about it? I know that our moon is bigger than our sadly demoted planet Pluto. How big is our quasi-moon? Bigger than our moon? Bigger than Pluto? Where does it fall on that spectrum of things that we that you and your organization likes to denigrate?
Oh, man, a little dig there at the end.
Ooh. Huh. I think I'm going to go now, actually.
Feel bad.
So the Quasi-Moon that we're naming is considerably smaller than both of those things. It is an asteroid, so it's it's much smaller than a dwarf planet, which is a reclassification of a planet that we know of in our solar system, like the 8 planets that we have. Not demoted, reclassified.
Yeah, get him. But is it technically a PHA? Is it technically a potentially harmful asteroid, or is it just like it just happens to kind of look like it's in orbit around us?
It is. I actually don't know if it's considered, if this one in particular is considered a potentially hazardous asteroid, but it is a near Earth object.
Yeah,
And we learned.
Oh, please.
Oh, go ahead.
Salman knows
Salman.
more than me.
I was just gonna say, like, that, yeah, I mean, like, it is because its orbit is so close to the Earth. Again, it's going around, and so it sort of like back and forth it goes. So potentially, sometimes these kind of objects can come in, but we don't have a big danger from it. But Monty, you and I, a long time ago on a different radio station, we talked about there was a small or a meteor that crashed in Siberia. That was the Chelyabinsk meteor. So that's from the similar family of asteroids, and that was much smaller. That was about 60 feet across. This one is a little bit bigger. This is close to about 500 feet, although it's really hard to tell the exact size and stuff. So it's a little bit bigger than that, but still much smaller than our moon.
All I'm imagining is asteroid Rumspringa, where like baby asteroids are like, I'm going to go out and see the rest of the solar system.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll come back.
Just don't visit us at an astronomical rate.
Right.
Should we try? I learned from Radiolab about this phrase that I know has been changed into a popular television show about the 3-body problem.
It was a short story,
Right.
a novel in China first before it was the TV show. The novel itself is wonderful, but the way that a third body changes the math is fascinating.
So what is the third body problem with our as of yet unnamed quasi-moon, or is there a 3-body problem with this, Kelly, from the International Astronomical Union?
Well, it actually reduces down to a pretty simple 2-body problem because the third body or quasi-moon is pretty small.
Okay, so the math being pulled between 3 different directions isn't going to mess it up and accidentally send this quasi-moon into the Earth anytime soon.
No, probably not. But I would say also that it's far more than a 3-body problem because we have so many objects in our solar system.
Oh dear. But again, not something we should worry about.
No, not at all.
So we should name it something friendly, maybe. Latif Nasser from Radiolab, who has instigated this naming contest with the International Astronomical Union, tell us about some of the details about how people can figure out a name for this quasi-moon and some of the criteria that are that they must abide by so that the IAU will accept it.
Yeah, for the people who don't want to read the 10 pages of rules that there are for actually naming.
Sure. Yeah, we boiled those rules down pretty nicely, so it should be easy to read. But basically, from now until the end of September, you can go to radiolab.org/moon, and you can put in what you think this should be called, this Quasi-Moon, this neighbor of ours. And the kind of the biggest catch, there's a lot of catches, like you can't, the rules are like you can't name it after a company or a product or a pet or something like that. But the kind of the main, the trickiest criterion is it should be a mythological inspired name. Because if you think about it, like Venus and Mars and everything out there is sort of in our solar system is mythological named. But the fun, to refer back to something that Professor Universe said, is that the
I like that.
so many of those objects in the solar system are named after Greek and Roman mythology. And kind of the fun here is just opening it up. It can come from anywhere. It can be any mythology from anywhere in the world. It can even be like there have been in the past fictional mythologies, like from Lord of the Rings or something. Like, go wild. Like, find something that is fun, that is inspiring, that makes you feel like, wow, how cool would it be if something up there that's meaningful to me, that I think is meaningful to a lot of people, could be named this. So from now until September, we're soliciting names. Then in October, we're gonna boil down that kind of giant pile of names to about 10 or so, and then for November and December, that same website, radiolab.org/moon, you can go there and vote for your favorites, and the top vote getter will be the name.
That means it's going to be called Moony McMoonface, right?
There's too many characters.
I'm okay with that. I don't know, Kelly, how do you feel about that?
I don't know. It's got a ring to it.
No Zuzve, but it's close.
But good luck finding a culture for whom Moony McMoonface is a traditional name. That's the hitch there.
It's the clan name. They have a tartan and everything. Involves a lot of blue and white.
Yeah.
Kelly, how often does the public get to name bodies like this through the IAU? Or is it usually the scientific community just kind of knowing that this is an open thing, finding a body out there that doesn't have a name and submitting something?
Well, there are relatively few campaigns that we do to give the public the opportunity to name an object in space. The names for asteroids and other small bodies, I think in particular asteroids, are kind of at the discretion of the discoverer. So if you see an unnamed or an asteroid that just has a alphanumeric code, and you can get in touch with the discoverer, you could pitch your idea to the discoverer, but you do kind of have to know the inside scoop about how all of that works in order to get it done. But we do have campaigns, public campaigns, to allow people to name things. For example, our contest called Name Exoworlds allows people the opportunity to name an exoplanet and its sun. So we've, in the past, in 2015, 2019, and 2022, had people, write in with names that they would like to ascribe to various extrasolar systems. And usually these are very deeply cultural names, things that have deep meaning to various people around the world, and all of the world's languages.
I jokingly mentioned this earlier, Kelly, but the International Star Registry is, from an astronomical and scientific and International Astronomical Union perspective, is totally bogus, right? That's
Yes.
just shameless capitalism of somebody who's like, I know what I can sell you. I got a bridge in Brooklyn too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a shame that they fool so many people into thinking that they're a reputable source of information, and that the international astronomy community actually takes what they're saying seriously.
Yeah, they're always advertising on my old radio station, which is very obnoxious.
To be fair, it does help if for an last-minute anniversary present. If it's
true.
pretty meaningless, but it's like just enough.
But if you get the template, you can print it out on your own and say,
that's
well,
true. That's
and-
true. That's
and-
fair.
Just make your own registry.
And as an astronomer, I just think that it's not the individual stars. You should be able to name galaxies. There are so many galaxies out there, so I would
And
skip the
not to
stars.
bring it back to Scotland, but like I got my dad a 1x5 piece of land, which is all you need for lordship in Scotland, which seems a little bit easier than having a star
Yeah.
for probably about the same
You
price.
can't go
Nice.
visit.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's an even better anniversary present.
Yeah, it's conserved, and now it's conservation land, but technically my dad owns it, so he's a lord.
There we go. Kelly, one last question for you before we have to let you all go. We're trying to figure out through Radiolab how to name this quasi-moon of Earth. Why doesn't our regular moon have a name? Or is our regular moon's name Moon? Or could we name our moon something cooler than Moon?
Well, I think the moon would be offended that you don't like its name. The moon's name is Moon. It has been, I think it probably derives from all of the different languages that have referred to it, in the past, from antiquity. So there's no need to rename the moon. It's very much in the similar way that the Earth is called the Earth. It stems from Terra. So it's, just the name that we have for the moon. And no, we cannot rename the moon to
Okay.
Moony McMoonface
That
or
was going
whatever
to be
else you'd like to name it.
Radiolab gets to rename name a quasi-moon. The Fabulous 413 could rename Actual Moon.
I feel like that's a gross misinterpretation of scale.
I think so too. Yeah. I want to submit my vote for the name of the quasi-moon as the Death Star because A, it's a mythology, and B, that's no moon.
Oh, that's good. That could
Am I
work.
allowed to talk to Latif? And because I know that employees of WNYC
Yeah.
and Radiolab are not allowed.
No,
to
we
enter
are
this
barred, but that is a solid recommendation.
I am going to do this really.
And I feel like that's a good rule because you've already named a quasi-moon.
Yeah, it's quasi-moon. It's called the Death Star.
You had your
It's no
shot.
moon. Yeah.
But remember, you have to. This telling us what you want to name is not enough. It's not good enough. You have to go to the contest website, and that's where you put that information in, and don't tell anyone.
Radiolab.org/moon.
Yeah.
And Kelly from the International Astronomical Union, if we want to name a solar system, are those contests still available? And where do people go to do that?
I think we have like 2 years off, so you have time to
You
plan.
can think about it.
Yeah, we're definitely going to do another campaign, but we don't know when. So stay tuned. But we do have a website, NameExoMoon. Got me on moons now. NameExoWorlds.org, where you can look at the other contests, see the past winners, the various rules and regulations that we have associated with that, and just to keep up with anything that we have going on in the future.
Because there's different rules for naming the asteroids versus naming the larger things.
Yeah, and those are fun to get to plumb the depths of when you have time. Well, I hope that maybe we can all get back together when this quasi-moon gets named and chat
Yeehaw.
again about and maybe even get the person who named the moon on with us. It would be really fun. It's such a great, first of all, what a wonderful encounter with your child's poster again, Latif, that's turned into this wonderful story that's turned into a way that literally all of us human beings on the globe can interact with something that's in our solar system as cool as a quasi-moon. You have until the end of the month to vote on it. Latif Nasser from Radiolab,
Thank you.
Kelly Blumenthal from the International Astronomical Union, and our very own Mr. Universe, Hampshire College's Salman Hamid from Amherst. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
been such a pleasure.
Pleasure.